Coming on live. This is day one of our 3-day training that I've named Taming the Triggers. This is all about the stuff that gets our heart thumping at work, things that are stress inducing, things that we are finding ourselves distracted by, and ways in which we can self-manage and up-level our skills so that we feel less stress and more in command. Because who doesn't want to feel that? Maybe even have fun. Okay, so we got 3 days that we're deconstructing what triggers us at work. I want us to just level set. Let's talk about what we mean by triggered at work. If you have ever felt uncomfortable emotions like angry or sad, or not even just mad and sad, but like white hot angry, like really pissed off, or so sad that you feel like you're going to lose it in a meeting or in front of somebody, a position of power, and you want to go to the bathroom and cry. If you have felt resentful or frustrated or demoralized or sort of distracted, upset, or maybe you just kind of get numb, like you just get detached. These are ways that triggering emotions show up for us at work. Like, you can energetically raise your hand if that resonates for you. For me, it was often like going through this spiral of obsession over interactions long after they're over, or like rolling over in bed, like half awake, half asleep, and then awakening myself with stressful thoughts about what just happened or what was about to happen. I think this is really common for gals like us who brand ourselves, or I call our brand of leadership, strong and sensitive. Like, we're out there, we're getting stuff done, we're being seen, but it doesn't mean that we're impervious to the emotional state that can sometimes arise from being put out there and being vulnerable and seen. So if you have ever felt triggered at work, you know it feels horrible. It feels like an out of control experience. Sometimes it's this visceral, I like to call it a sonic boom, that kind of like an adrenaline charge or surge that bursts into your body that just feels like you might explode. It's very disruptive. It's very upsetting physically and emotionally, and it's not necessary. It's normal, but it's not helpful to experience these feelings over and over again. If you are experiencing feelings like this over and over again, you might think about quitting. You might be looking for a way to opt out. You might experience emotions like just overflowing anger or sadness, crying and fury. And you might just be feeling defeated or stressed out. So what this is all about, these 3 days, is me teaching resilience tactics to help address the stressors that you cannot control. It's like you can get cut off in traffic when you're driving, and you can get really pissed off about that, or you could turn up the volume on your favorite song on the radio. We get to choose, is the point. That we're not just ignoring things that are upsetting to us, but we are raising our skill set to be able to adapt and respond more effectively. And that requires us to have some skills and emotional awareness to be able to do so. Sound good? Okay. So if you haven't heard of me or from me before, I am a leadership development expert that has been training people into leadership positions for over 30 years. This means that I am well acquainted with how leaders get triggered when they put themselves out there, the common ways in which we are open to criticism or can experience rejection or failure, or how we can feel resentful or deal with talk behind our backs, or the pushing and pulling of egos and staff and bosses. All of the everyday things that happen in our work lives can be challenging triggers. And that's often what I'm coaching my people in leadership on. When we say leadership coach, you might think that I'm teaching leadershipy things that are external and about moving through the world, but often it's about dealing with the internal environment and our inner world. I myself, in my very long corporate career, have experienced some of the most uncomfortable leadership situations. I've been at a very high level where I've done multiple layoffs. I've fired people. I've been through recessions, of course, the pandemic, and I've even had perhaps the most challenging experience that somebody can have, which is dealing with the death of an employee on the job. And it happened more than once. So in all of these experiences, traumatic experiences, I, as a leader, have been called on to step forward and actually speak. And that's what today's about. How do we find our voice, especially in those moments when it's the hardest to speak out? I've spoken at funerals and weddings. I have been in multiple keynotes. I think one of the more triggering things that I've ever experienced as a speaker was when CNN, the news network, was doing a piece on public speaking and was filming me about speaking. So yes, I'm a leadership coach. Yes, I do all of the leadership coaching things. But really, I am a super expert in public speaking. I think I've probably given 5,000 speeches over the course of my life, and I've trained as many as 5,000 people in public speaking as well. So you are in the right place if you want to learn how to speak more comfortably, more in command, eradicating distracting mannerisms like ums and uhs and likes, using your hands to positively influence your message, not distract. This is all about you up-leveling this super portable skill and dealing with the jitters and the terrors that come along with feeling like you're exposed, right? So if you have felt nervous when you've had to give a speech, you know what it feels like to have like those jitters or that feeling of like, what are they thinking about me? Even in meetings, almost especially in meetings when you raise your hand or you get called on to speak and you have to come off mute or everybody looks at you, even that can trigger sort of this terror of speaking. Do you feel me? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. So I want to give you lots of practical tips and also some powerful reframes. Ready? We're going to really dig in now. I want to start with this really, really fun fact that I hope will open you up and make you feel more bold and encouraged about your speaking journey. Is the fun fact. For a 10-minute speech, immediately after the presentation, it is estimated that the audience only remembers 50% of what you just said. Half. The next day, it's estimated the audience remembers 25% of what you said. And a week later, it is down to 10%. So while this could seem like a really discouraging statistic, what I want to call out is how funny is it that we're so worried about what we're going to say and what everybody's going to think, when actually the real concern is they are not really hearing us at all. We're worried about a problem that doesn't exist. So many of us, when we have to give a speech, we'll write out all the notes. We'll want to have it all lined out. We want to read it several times. We want to practice it over and over and over again. But we're really focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on our words and thinking that's the most important thing that we don't want to mess up. But they're not judging us on what we're saying. They're not even really retaining what we're saying. Little mind blow. So let's back it up a little bit. And if you're joining me live, I would love to have you type in the comments below, what makes you nervous? Find the chat button, give me some comments. I won't name you, you can remain happily anonymous in this, but what gets you going when you're giving a speech, when you feel yourself maybe triggered by standing and delivering? Some of the things that I've heard in the past are just that feeling that everyone's looking at you, the focus of thinking like they're all judging me. What do they think of me? Sometimes it brings up this fear of not being up to expectations. Or we're really worried about not being an expert. We're worried, like, what if somebody asks us a question, right, that stumbles us and we don't know how to respond to it, and that exposes our inadequacy or our ignorance? So it's this fear, like this imposterism, this fear that we're not going to be ready. Some of the other comments, I don't know the answer, and I blank when somebody asks the question. Another person said questions. Wow, that sounds like that's a theme. Really worrying about your performance is something too, like really wanting to get it right or wanting to impress people or feeling intimidated about who's in the audience. I see a comment that I haven't prepped enough, like, right, that it's not going to be good enough. Like you worry that it's going to be flawed. For some of us, even our own physical experience of nervousness is what is distracting us. Sometimes, when your mouth gets really pasty and dry, or your hands shake, or you blank out and you lose your place in your notes, that can be very triggering. Or if you get really sweaty, or if you feel like a hot flush making your chest go pink, or your voice starts to quiver and you notice it, all of that can freak us out even more. So that we're kind of in this tailspin. I think there's also this sense too that if we're really aware of your audience and you see people go off camera, or you see people like look away, or if you see people like log off, it can give us this shudder of like, oh, I didn't do it right, or they're judging me. I want to read some more comments. Not taking up space. I try to speak as short as possible, while other people, namely men, go on and on and on and on and on, right? Like, so we don't even want to take up space, and it makes us nervous to hear our voice and to make that overture or take that space. Another comment: when I have to present with someone else's materials and I'm expected to read the materials rather than the overview, that would be really hard for me too. Okay, well, I'll try to get to some of those questions, but let's talk about what's really happening. So as you're kind of experiencing the shakedown of nerves that you might feel when you're in a meeting or presenting, what's really happening is really none of those things are addressing the core issue. We're so worried about what everybody thinks about us when they're actually not even really thinking about us. People are in their own heads thinking about their own lives 99% of the time. They are the star in their own movie, not us. So while we feel like we're on stage and being graded or looked at, what's really happening, the experience is all of those individuals are in the audience. Their experiences, they're sitting there thinking about what they're going to eat next, or whether their phone's silent, or how much longer before their next meeting. They're having thoughts. They're having multitasking mental chatter and clutter. They're not actually grading us. So what we think is the problem is not the problem. So the solution is for us not to make it about us, because that's not the problem. The challenge, the solution is for us to focus on the message and focus on the audience, them, the listener. And so now I want to give you 2 hacks. Are you ready? If it's not all about us, if we don't have to be perfectly perfect, if we don't have to have all of the potential answers to the questions that might be raised, if we don't really are being graded, if that's not about our performance, if they're not remembering our words, and the solution is to think about the audience and the message. For the audience, we want to think, how do I want them to feel? What's the point that I want them to experience? Do I want them to be educated? Do I want them to be more aware? Do I want them to learn something? Do I want them to be inspired? Do I want them to get on the same page? Do I want to motivate them? Like, hack for what you want the audience to feel and be in that space rather than your performance. And I can give you some tips on then how you would frame that. And then think about your message as something that isn't you and your performance. It's something almost external and outside of you. And for this, I'm just going to do a little demo. I just picked something up off of my desk. I picked up a little lip balm, a little lip gloss. I like to think about public speaking as objectifying the topic. So it's not me and my performance and how perfectly perfect I am, and if I find the right word, if I'm articulate, and if they like me. I think about my message almost like it's an object. And so if I'm thinking about the object, I'm not worried about being perfectly perfect. I'm describing the thing. I'm explaining the size and the quantity and the shape and the character. Now, I know that you're not actually talking about lip gloss when you're giving a public speech, unless maybe you are, but you can make your speech as if it were an object. Even if it's a concept, it's a thing that you're describing. And if you're energetically looking at that thing in your mind, if you're thinking about that thing, if you're explaining the essence of that thing, the concept, the project, the message, the deliverable, the presentation, then you're not all in that shakedown ego because you're talking about something outside of yourself. Does that resonate? And it helps you get your spirit going. It helps you get momentum going. It helps you be more authentic. It helps you not cramp down so much on, uh, and like looking at your notes. It helps you be freer and more in your own spirit. So I really like that hack. I hope you like that one too. All right, so just to give us a little bit of an overview what we've done so far, I wanted to talk about three basic things. The first is what we're focusing on and what we're really should be focusing on, what the solve is, right? It's not about us. Even for the audience, it's not about us. The second thing I want to talk about is how do we make it easy on the audience? If you've identified how you want them to feel, what you want their experience to be like, you want them to be motivated or inspired or uplifted or clear or on board or all on the same page. Remember, they're only going to remember 10% of what you say. So start there. Make it simple. What's the most important point? How simple can you make it? How can you ensure they get the take-home message? Make it easy on the audience to be a good audience, to retain more than 10%. So I'm going to give you lots of little tips here. Slow down. We speak way too fast when we're nervous. We speak really fast when we're talking about things that we know. But it takes the audience more time to track what they're actually hearing. So we need to slow it down. I'm a big promoter of a verbal outline, of telling people there are three basic topics. This is the first, now we're on the second, and then I've got one more. Giving a verbal outline, verbal bullet points, milestones in the speech, conscious repetition. If you remember, the first thing I talked about was how the problem that we think is the problem is not really the problem and what it is instead. And now I'm talking about how to make it easier on the audience. So I'm demonstrating this for you within this speech. And then you want to continue to repeat your points. You want to continue to summarize what you just said. You want to continue to give signposts as you go. We're talking about the bullet points of how to make audience retain your message. Notice I'm slowing down, right? You want to make it super simple when you restate it, even for you gals that are listening in, who are in tech, who are delivering really advanced proposals or presentations that have a lot of detail. You still need to make it so simple so that everybody gets the message. When you restate what you present, you want to say it as if you're talking to a 7-year-old. Not in sing-song childish language or to be condescending, but to make it that easy to understand. Like literally, people, what we're talking about is we're T-minus 30 days to go live. And so every single day counts. That's how you would summarize a very complicated presentation, as if you were speaking to somebody who had basic language skills, right? There are other techniques that you can use, like explaining how it would look, how it would feel, or using what I call word pictures or imagery, giving a metaphor for how this might also be described, or telling a story. And then the other way that you can be super effective with interacting with an audience is just do it a lot. Do it a lot, do it a lot, do it a lot. Speak freely, speak frequently, be videotaped. It's horrifying, but it's very effective. I can tell you a story way back when I was just a emerging little baby chick of a speaker. I was a tour guide in my 20s, and I would take people on vacation. I'd take people on vacations, really long vacations in New Zealand, 17-day vacations, and every single day I'd be posted up and giving a speech about what we were doing that day, like a tour guide does. And somebody filmed me and I watched it on replay, and I saw me do the most cringeworthy thing. I did this thing where when I was nervous, I would kind of like tilt my head in this very like demure way and like stroke my hair behind my ear and kind of like touch my neck, which inadvertently is a sign of feeling submissive and feeling like bashful or feeling smaller than. Ugh! And I would watch this and I would think, horrified at how awkward and small and gross I looked. And it just eradicated that mannerism. I never do it anymore because it was instant repulsion. It kind of excised it from my physical vocabulary. So being filmed can be really effective, even if it gives you the cringes. Okay. 3 more things about your audience experience. There are 3 things that they want to know. You ready? What's in it for me? What do I need to know? Like, really, what is the take home that I need to know? How does this affect me? What am I going to get out of this? Second, how long am I going to have to focus? Listening takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of bandwidth to follow somebody in an auditory way. And the third one is, are we almost done? Which just goes back to the second one. How much longer? So even if you're presenting and there are slides, it's helpful to say, we've done 10 slides, we're 13 total, we've got 3 more left, folks, let's keep going. Like letting people know, second slide, this is the last slide. Oh, what a relief your audience breathes. We're like, thank goodness we're done. Thank goodness I don't have to keep listening. They're not saying that about you personally. It's just, you can imagine how it's a relief to know where we are. Okay. I want to give you some facts for retention that might be helpful for you because we're talking about the audience experience. Do you know that TED Talks are 18 minutes in length? That's the constraint. And the reason for that is that's the perfect focus time. That after between 10 and 18 minutes, we start to fade. And I am keeping track of the time right now. So you want to make sure your speeches aren't that long. And if you're given 40 minutes to speak, then that's 2 topics put together with a little commercial break. So you don't want to have to feel like you have to fill the whole time with one long thread. You want to make a beginning, middle, and end within 20 minutes. And then if you have another topic, another piece of that topic, or you want to expand on it, it's almost like another beginning, middle, and end. More facts for retention. Your audience only really gets the very beginning and the very end, and the messy middle is kind of like a jumble. So over prepare your beginning and know your exit. Even if you panic, you have your exit, you know how you're going to finish, and the rest is going to be okay. And know that, especially if you're speaking extemporaneously or just auditorially, like not slides, the way in which people retain information is more about your body language and your tone than the content. We get it reversed. We spend 90% of the time on our content, making sure it's perfectly perfect. And then we go and stress out about the delivery. But really, 7% of what is received is content. 35% is your tone and your pacing. And 55% is your body language. So don't focus on your notes. Focus on the takeaways and the beginning and the end. That's the money. Okay. How are we doing? We're on our last point now. We've talked about how the problem is not the problem. The problem you think it is not the problem. It's not about you. It's about the audience retention. Then we gave you a bunch of audience hacks, how to make it easy for the audience to follow you. The last thing is, how do you make it easy on yourself, right? Even if all this resonates for you, you might still have that emotional, visceral shakedown of adrenaline the minute you raise your hand or step up to the microphone. So there are some ways that you can handle that living inside this meat suit that's super powered with body chemistry. You got to shake it out. Adrenaline needs to be expended. So I like to find a flight of stairs that I can race up and down 3 times fast and then catch my breath before I go out to the microphone. I need to get it out of my system. That's how I get the shakes out, or I literally shake. So how to make it easy on yourself? Step 1 is get your body moving. Do some deep knee bends. Do some jumping jacks. It sounds ridiculous, but it'll make you more composed once you're settled in front of a microphone. Another one is laughing. Find something that makes you laugh. Have something on speed dial on your phone, a YouTube video that makes you laugh. Laughing out loud helps expend the nervous energy and stimulates endorphins, which is going to make you feel better. And have you heard about power posing? Perhaps you know about power posing. There's a wonderful TED Talk I can give you the link to, but basically standing in a position of dominance, like a V over your head as if you're in victory as you just won the 100-yard dash, or the Wonder Woman pose with your fists on your hips and your chin up and your chest out. These power poses actually generate neurochemistry as if you are dominant. So you can hack your way to feeling confident, giving yourself a dose of testosterone, of serotonin by standing in a place as if you are powerful. It makes your brain think, oh, we should feed the power chemistry now. So it's a nice hack. All right. I want to finish by saying you have all you need. You just need to take away the stuff that's distracting from you being effective, which is you over preparing, worrying about your delivery, and making it all about yourself. All you have to do is make it simple, make it easy on the audience, and know that they want to laugh, they want to have fun, but more than anything, they just want your speech to be short. So I'm going to break with my own tradition and say that is actually the end of my presentation, which, if you know me, is radical. I usually take a lot more time, but I wanted to also demonstrate for you how in this talk, I used the same lessons that I'm teaching. I gave you a first, a middle, a last. I told you a story midway when your attention would drop. And I finished with a take home that I want you to remember. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to give you some announcements now, and then we'll stop the recording and do some live coaching if you're joining. I want to say that this is day 1 of 3 days where we're going to be taming the triggers. Tomorrow, day 2, is people pleasing and perfectionism. These reactive tendencies that are embedded in the ways in which we've learned how to perform that are driving us into the ground. How do we keep the good and eradicate the bad? I would love to see you live on that call. And then third day is imposter syndrome, that terrible feeling that we're not enough, that's born of the inner critic and negative self-talk. How do we blow up imposter syndrome and feel like we belong where we are and can even expand even further into our roles, whatever they may be? If this has lit you up and you want more, yes, it takes time and practice. And yes, listening to a presentation is different than actually implementing for yourself. That's why I have a special offer just for this group. You may know I have this whole program called Completely Confident Leadership. It's a 5-month immersion program for women in leadership. But I have this little breakaway jumpstart mini course on how to speak authentically, powerful public speaking, how to practice, prepare, and perform in a way that is authentic and effective. It's a mini course, and I'll be sending the folks that attended this or registered for this webinar, you're going to get a special invitation. I don't do it very often. I do it when I have room in my calendar because it involves me one-on-one coaching you in your speaking skills and helping you uplevel this incredibly portable, very valuable skill. So look in your inboxes for that, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, that's it for now. Don't go away though.